Welcome to the Relentless Education Podcast. And today we're talking about sales, how to become $1 million high-ticket closer.
Sales is one of those things that influences your entire life. I think if you're great at sales, then you're also great at relationships. Why? Why didn't you think about it? That's actually a failure of your system.
Number one, get you to become a killer closer as quickly as possible. We're still in the trenches. And to be honest, I freaking love the trenches. Celebrate with your client because their life's about to change. Welcome to the Relentless Education Podcast. We're here to make you better in every way. And today we're talking about sales. Right. More importantly, how to become $1 million high-ticket closer. And we love sales, man. We talk about this all the time. But before we do, welcome, brother.
It's so good to be here as always, man. I think the last episode was fantastic. We got tons of great feedback from it, which is great. Yeah. And I think we mentioned on that last one that we were going to go into deep dive into sales. So we're looking forward to what we get to share with everyone today.
Totally. Because it's freaking important. I mean, if we don't nail this part of the process, which if you listen to this, you're probably a coach, consultant, expert in some degree. And what we find when individuals are starting a business, especially, they're great at coaching and consulting, but they're not so great at sales because of fear, because of lack of practice, because of lack of competency. And so our mission for you, if you are at Relentless Education, is number one, get you to become a killer closer as quickly as possible. But if you're watching this, you're going to pick up some epic frameworks, tricks, benchmarks, and ways of thinking about sales that maybe you haven't experienced before. So I'm really excited about this because both you and me, we have done a lot of sales in our time. We've closed a lot of big deals, a lot of high ticket deals in different industries. And so it's a topic we love to share because we've got the results. We've been in the trenches. We're still in the trenches. And to be honest, I freaking love the trenches. I don't think I'll ever be out of the trenches because I've noticed in the past, if I've had a break, your skill set starts to get a little bit rusty. So I'm always really focusing on making sure that I'm staying in the game, keeping sharp. Obviously, we need to teach a lot of people, so it's important to us. But I think anyone listening to this, if they can be inspired to do more in sales and learn a little bit more, they're going to get some great wins on the board. And those wins are not only going to be personal, but financial.
100%. Sales is one of those things that influences your entire life. You know, and the psychology of sales is ultimately about influence and positive influence on people's life, and it's about service. And I think if you're great at sales, then you're also great at relationships. You know, you're great at taking care of people, you're great at listening to people, and I'm sure we'll touch on it, but I think the biggest objection that people have is they go, well, I don't like sales because of all of my crappy experiences in sales. And you have to let go of that. It's kind of like saying, well, I'm not going to be a parent because there's a lot of crappy parents out there. Well, why don't you just become a great parent? And it's the same in sales. Become a great salesperson. I think we all, I don't think anyone really likes being sold to, but we all love buying stuff and we all love having great buying experiences where we're well taken care of. And so that's what this is about. And I think it makes every area of your life better. But most importantly, it enables you. It's the one thing you need to be able to run a successful business for the rest of your life.
Totally. If you've had bad experiences and you don't want to do sales because of that, I love that message. Be the change you want to see in the world. Start setting a higher standard in your niche, in your industry. And to your point, you know, it's about creating a great experience for the person on the other side of the call or the phone or in person. And so I think going into a sales call with that sort of mindset, and we'll touch a bit now on mindset, I think if you can go into a call, and I do this before every sales call, with the intention to detach from the outcome, but make sure that this person leaves feeling freaking good, that their day is shifted because of the energy I'm prepared to give, the insights I'm prepared to give, and inevitably the solution that I'm prepared to give.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people focus too much on trying to get the sale, and then maybe get too wrapped up in the process or the logistics of the sale. And obviously the process, the logistics, they're all important. And we'll go through some frames today that are integral for you to follow. It's just that when you're in the sales call, you actually do have to think, it's not about me getting this sale, because the way that the conversion rates work is it's like, you know, like if you're closing 30%, which is pretty world class, you know, 3 out of 10 buy, the other 7 don't buy, you know, so the majority don't buy. But if you go into the sale call not worrying about that and just focusing on, I'm going to make everyone feel great, I'm going to give a great experience, I'm going to give a shit about people, I'm going to find out about people, And if you do that, regardless of if they buy, then the paradox is that more buy. But if you go in with the attitude where it's like, especially if people are in scarcity, I think one of the biggest problems with new coaches, especially, is if they make the decision to not work too fast or something like that. They don't have the funds, and they're in this place of like, man, I got to close. Like, I need this deal. Then you bring that energy into the sale. The person can tell you're no longer really caring about their best interest because you just really want the deal. And it's an interesting paradox because obviously everyone wants the deal. You want the sale, but you have to put them and the experience first. And like you said, completely detached from getting it. And then the weird thing is that you actually close at a higher rate when you're not so wrapped up in, I have to get every single one. People join because they just want to be around you. They want more of what you just gave them in that moment.
Totally. And I think to your point about having a 30% close rate, 40% close rate, you have to be willing to face the rejection, face no's. And I think, why don't we have a chat about what we see in the best closers? Because we get to work with a lot of great closers. We are great closers. And I think there are certain traits and certain mindsets that define a good closer from the get-go. And one of those is being able to handle rejection. And I think if you go into every call with that needy energy and a fear of failure and rejection, you are going to give up on selling and the whole process just as quickly as you entered the game.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that the mistake people make is they take it personally. And it's not personal. Like, when people join, they join because of multiple reasons. And one of them is because your offer is exactly what they want. We do a lot of qualification to make sure that they're only the right people, or as close as we can get to the right people, actually show up for sales calls. But when people say no, it's not because they don't like you. They're not saying no to you as a person. They're saying no to your product, but they're also saying no to your sales experience. And I think that in business, but especially in sales, you have to have that mindset of everything's feedback. Everything's about a test and measure. If I'm closing 10%, it's not because I suck as a salesperson. It's probably because there's some area in that sales process that I need to improve. And I think that's another part of the mindset that a great salesperson has, is they're just eager to learn. You give a great salesperson feedback, they go, thank you. Oh, that's so sorry. I need to not say that. Amazing. Thank you. Write that down. I'm going to not say that again. The person that gets tripped up, you say, you did really great, but you need to improve this. And they're like, I feel really bad. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're thinking about them as a person. That can be hard if someone's in that position, but you have to do whatever work you need to do, if it's coaching or whatever, and lots of role playing, to get out of that, where it's no longer about you and it's about the individual. And then you can just really love improving and getting better at all of the systems that you have inside your sales process.
Totally. One of the fastest ways to get over it, and it's not the answer that everybody wants to hear, but it's the answer that will get you there the fastest, is get in there, do the reps, and face as much objection as you can, as quickly as you can. Yeah. So you realize, oh, wow, I didn't die. My world didn't end. Right. Rather than sitting there going, okay, I need to do inner child work to get this sorted. Man, you're better off just going in and getting pummeled with rejection and then being like, oh, wow, it's getting easier. All of a sudden next week, I didn't feel it. Okay. And do your work, do the inner work. It's all good.
Yes.
But you can get there just as quickly by doing the freaking reps. And I think people don't want to hear that because they don't want to be baptized.
It's more confronting to actually do it.
Oh, totally.
It's so enjoyable to go get a coaching session.
Exactly. It's way easier. Look, I'm just going to spend another 10K on, that's right. I'm going to do therapy for 10 years and then I'll be able to handle 2 sales calls. Yeah. No, do the sales calls.
Yeah.
Put yourself out there. Do 100 and make no money, but you are absolutely learning the vital lessons you need to not only be good at sales, but to be good at life.
Yeah.
Like, look, I don't have kids yet. You've got beautiful children. When I do have kids though, I'm going to rip them out of school and I'm going to put them on door-to-door sales and I'm going to baptize them in sales fire. Because I think when I did street sales and things like that, it was one of the worst experiences because it's just terrible. Like it's a challenge, but it was the best because it hardened me up and really toughened me up, so to speak, in regards to being able to handle rejection and face people in awkward situations. I think if you can learn that skill and you take that into any area of life, you're going to win. You're going to win big time.
Completely. I completely agree. I would even add on top of that it teaches you to not be fazed. by the objection. I think that another really important attribute in a great closer is that their energy doesn't go up and down massively. I remember I used to run a sales team for a coaching company. And every now and then, if we would have like a new person come in and we would give them an opportunity and maybe it didn't work out for them, one of the things that I would notice is that they would they'd be down a fair bit and then they'd get a sale and then they'd be like up. And I would explain to them, I'm like, it's nearly like you're letting that person save you in a way. It's like you needed that sale to feel good or something. And then they dip again, where a great salesperson's just constant. It's like, if I get a sale or I don't get a sale, I'm kind of the same because I know that the no was one closer to a yes. And they're not just seeing the sale, they're seeing the entire day, the lead generation process, or in the case that you shared, like how many doors do I need to knock on? How many people do I need to speak to? And when you can simply just stay positive, like I think another point, if I can add on one more, is you have to be an optimist.
Oh, sure.
Like you have to see the glass half full. Like sometimes in our community, maybe if it's maybe a newer coach, and they're still learning optimism, they'll say something like, well, I ran a webinar and only 10 people showed up to the webinar and only 2 people bought. And I'll be like, you're framing that horribly. Like this, if I were you, I would say this: I ran a webinar and 10 people joined and 2 people bought, and I'm pumped. Like it's super exciting. Or I ran a webinar and no one showed up, but I'm so proud of myself for actually doing it. You have to be an optimist. And that's kind of like a do not pass go, do not collect $200 kind of moment. You must train yourself to see the best in everything and to see your progress. Because otherwise, if you just, like you said, you've got all this rejection coming your way, you have to be able to frame that as something awesome that you're learning, you're becoming a champion. Otherwise, it's like you're not cut out for it.
Totally. I think another good point about rejection is that you need to view every sales call that you have as university, an opportunity to learn. Now, this is a really key one for any of new coaches listening right now. And I'll speak to our experience in our companies as well. When you're on a sales call as the owner, especially, it is a vital time to improve your offer. Now, you may have nailed the call, but your offer sucks, right? And you're getting 10 calls, 10 no's. Well, when you're listening to what they need, the outcomes that they need to actually get from the program, the pain that you're solving, etc., maybe your offer isn't quite there yet. And so we do this all the time. Like we'll do a sales call and then we'll call each other up and be like, we're DQing this amount of people because they don't have a certification or something like that. We've got the capacity. Let's build out a certification and fill that need. If we need to add something into the program, we do for a lot of our clients, we build out the websites, the landing pages, the email automation. We didn't do that originally though, did we?
Right.
How did we come up with that? Because when we're doing our sales calls,
We realized
the demand was there. So you can use the calls as R&D opportunities in order to get ahead. And I think the smart coaches out there, not only if you view it as cool, I could make some bank right now and learn sales, but also this is my opportunity for research, development, and optimizing the whole business model. That's worth showing up for every call that you get no to every day of the week.
Big time. I would add into that you got to let go of your ego around what you want to do versus what the market wants from you. I think I see too many people thinking, I want to sell this because this is what I love and this is my culmination of what I love. And there's an element of that thinking that is important, which you should do what you love and you should do what you're great at. And it should be heavily filtered through what do people want to buy from you? And it's like you're saying, you get all this feedback on a sales call. And even if you were to do 100 sales calls and not close, man, you know so much about what people want.
Totally.
You should be able to create the best offer after that. And it's really about figuring out what people want and then tailoring your offer to be exactly what they want. And I think that's just a smart way to think about business as well. Like back to being too egotistical, I think people hold on to bad ideas for too long. Instead of just, if you're getting the feedback, everyone wants A and you're selling B, just sell A. Just sell what people want, and then you can do really well in business.
Totally. Be willing to be flexible.
That's right.
100%.
Yeah.
I think another key mindset and knowing of a great closer and a great coach is showing up knowing they are the trusted advisor and really leaning into that position and frame. If you are showing up and you are not owning the frame, you are not showing up as that trusted advisor and have that professionalism, then you are not going to be able to lead the call. We'll talk more about that after. But I think the great closers show up exactly like that, because what happens through that mindset and understanding is you create certainty, and certainty always wins. In a sales conversation, in a leadership situation, if whoever has the most certainty will lead that call to an outcome. And so I think showing up with that trusted advisor mentality and mindset really is one of the things that separates the ordinary from extraordinary.
Yeah. And it backs up your point earlier about the reps. There really isn't much more important than doing those reps, and even just role playing. It's one of the things we're saying to our members all the time: role play with each other. Whenever someone's got a low close rate and they're not role playing, I don't understand it. I don't get what they're doing to solve that problem, because I know that you and I, when we first met each other, and you were in the gyms, and I was initially I was a personal trainer as well, and then obviously a coach. But we used to role play all the time. It's the only way to get good at something. The only way to speak with certainty is simply to practice it over and over and over again. I remember one of my mentors said to me, if you can't say something with certainty, don't say it. I mean, that's super wise. If you're fumbling around, or if you sound like you're unprepared, or if this is the first time you've asked that question, they're gonna know that. And your certainty needs to be greater than the doubt that they have.
Totally.
I don't know that we'll go deeper into this in this call. We have to help people overcome their objections. And, objections aren't, them just kind of arguing with you. They're actually actual concerns that they have. And one of the major concerns that people have is like, will I be able to do this? That's a massive concern people have in every niche. Do I think I can actually pull this off? And so they're already nervous about their ability to achieve the goal, but whatever the goal is that you're selling, if it's health, or if it's emotional, or if it's business, or anything, you have to be so certain that they can. And you also have to be super certain in your product. I think that's another thing that people underestimate. Like, if you don't believe in your product, how can you sell it? And that's why we tell people when they're new, like, do beta tests, run people through it, get testimonials. And I know, for example, for us, like, I find it so easy to sell our program because we have so many success stories. We have people tell us all the time, it's the best financial decision I've ever made. This has changed my life in so many ways. And you have to get that, because when you get that, it changes how you think about sales. Like, it's when someone is thinking, oh, I could probably do it, but I need to borrow money, or I need to move this around, you support that. You're like, yeah, it's a really good idea. You should probably do that, because I believe so wholeheartedly in you getting this outcome. And I think that's another important thing to think about. It's not about the sale. It's about what you're doing is you're not getting a deal. Especially in coaching, you're starting the relationship that is potentially a long relationship, especially in high ticket sales. It's usually like at least 6 to 12 months. And really what they're buying is they're not buying that moment. They're buying the outcome that you're selling them. And so you've kind of got to think about that and in your mind, see them as the finished result. And you've got to believe in that for them a little bit more than they believe in it. Because I think a lot of the time people don't fully believe that it's possible to like get the outcome that you're selling or whatever it is. So it's a big part of how certainty plays into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. And so in the beginning, as a coach, when you haven't done the reps, you need to trust in the fact that you are even maybe just one chapter ahead, but that's enough. That's enough for you to qualify as a trusted advisor. And then the reward for you being in the trenches, doing the work, getting the reps in, is that you truly believe in yourself as the trusted advisor. When you do the reps in private, when you do the reps when no one's watching, is when you're going to perform the best under pressure and on a sales call. And I think if we're going to talk a little bit about doing the reps, there's a bunch of ways you can train, and you don't need to hire a sales trainer off the bat. Like, it's great to have certainty around how to run the process, but you can do role playing. You can journal out the script to really nail it. You, of course, can call listen as well. That's a really big one. You can role play with a friend, another team member. You can role play with yourself. There's so many ways to do the reps in order to ingrain that knowledge and understanding in your mindset. And so the reps will solve many, many problems for you, whether it's the certainty problem, whether it's the competency and skill set problem, or the rejection challenge that you might be facing. All of those things can be overcome by just getting in the trenches and getting it done.
Yeah, that's a really important insight for really anything. I love it when someone says, when they join our mastermind and they say, I've got some fear around sales. And I say, great, well, we're going to help you overcome that by just getting you to do lots of sales. Like that is the only way to really overcome something. It's kind of like the whole fear of anything thing. You got a fear of flying. You could do a coaching session. You could do I used to do like phobia busts and stuff for people through NLP. And they're always really happy with their results, but you don't fully know if the fear's gone or not until you do it, until you go climb up a big building or whatever it is and look off the edge. So that applies to speaking, it applies to content, it applies to just running your day, it especially applies to sales. It's a huge way to think about absolutely everything.
I completely agree. So I think if you can show up with those core mindsets, if you can do the reps and just feel the fire a little bit, feel a little bit uncomfortable until you don't, it's going to fast track you. I think a rule of thumb is this: the more you do the thing, the better and the faster you're going to get at the thing. It's that simple. The less that you do it, the less time and effort that you put into doing it, the longer and more painful it's going to take. So this is your call to action. If you're listening to this, schedule time in your freaking calendar every day or every week to start drilling chunks of your script, to start practicing sales. And as we go through the anatomy today, and we teach this in our program, we help all our clients with this as well. As we go through that, you can think to yourself, which parts of the anatomy do I need to break down, isolate and drill on? And it might be 10 to 15 minutes a day. And honestly, that's all it takes for the most part. But if you do that, it's going to make you a lot of money, save you a lot of money, and of course, get you mentally, emotionally, and physically prepared for the actual sale. I think that the last thing to maybe mention on how to show up for a call is that, as we spoke about before, sales is a mental and energetic game. And I think if you're not showing up, controlling your state through that process, if you're not working on your energy, if you're not controlling how you feel, you're going to have a rough time doing a lot of sales calls. Now, great closers, they're doing maybe 4, 5, 6, sometimes 8 sales calls a day. And that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of mental strength and mental structure to make sure you're not having big up and down dips. And so I think going into a sales call, making sure that you prime your energy, you make sure that you're priming your mindset, and you're showing up with that curiosity, sense of gratitude, excitement to lean in and help this person change their life, and that'll make a world of difference in every call.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would add on that I think as an ultimate frame, you have to be so committed to the results in your business. One of the things that I decided this when I first did my coaching course originally back in 2011 or 12 or whenever it was. And I heard about the results that were possible for people. And I remember that the trainer said to me, the statistics are that out of the room, there was say 50 people in the room. He goes, statistics are 5 to 10 years from now, there's only going to be like 3 of you left. That's the statistics of like how many people give up and quit. And I just remember in that moment, I just made the decision. I was like, sweet, I'm never going to quit. I felt like it was the easiest decision to make, really, because I didn't say I have to get this amount of money by this time. I just thought, I'm just never going to quit. I'm always going to drill. I'm always going to improve. I know I'll have ups. I know I'll have downs. I'll have wins. I'll have losses, but I'm never going to quit. And I think if you make that decision and you make the commitment, I'm going to become an amazing salesperson no matter what. And because once you have that skill, this is the thing that I love about where we're at. It's like, it's so easy to have this conversation because it's just, you don't lose it. You don't, like you said, if you stop doing it for a while, you might get a bit rusty, but it's muscle memory. You pick it back up again. So you make that commitment to being a great salesperson. You have that skill, you're going to have it forever. And it's the number one thing that you're going to need to be able to have a great business, a business with purpose and meaning, a lifestyle that gives you levels of freedom, financial security. Everything hinges on it. And I think so if you kind of like, this sounds like a lot. Well, just go back to your goals. Think about your goals. Why are you here? What's the end result? Who do you need to help? It all pins on you learning this skill.
Well said. So why don't we run through what the ultimate sort of script structure looks like, or the flow of a sales call? And we teach this in 10 parts at Relentless, and because we like to isolate each area so people have that psychological context and specificity around each part so they can drill it separately and really dial it in. Of course, starting with the sales call, it's the intro frame of a sales call. And I think 2 words really sum it up. It's going to be number 1, building trust, and number 2, authority. I think that's really what that first intro part of a sales call is all about. But I also think that where people often go wrong with the intro call is the trust/rapport function of the intro. People blow that out of proportion, and through that process of letting that go on for too long, they actually lose authority. And so an example of that would just be asking a simple question like, hey, Matt, so good to have you today. Where are you in the world? Tell me, amazing, good there? Yep, it's beautiful. Awesome. Well, look, today's call, this is what it's all about. It's about making sure that you get to know me. I get to know you. I'll be running you through our process and see if we're a good fit for each other. Sound good? Sounds good. And so through that, it was a nice dose of rapport building, not too much, but then setting the agenda and tone of the call. So you are leading the call. You are the trusted advisor and the authority, but there was enough rapport there that you've got that connection. I think a big mistake though is when you sit there and you just jibber jabber nonsense for 10 minutes and all of a sudden you're in the friend zone. You know, you're not the trusted advisor. You're not the authority. You're a weird friend that I've just met for the first time. And I think that can really dilute the power of the sales call if you mess that up.
Yeah, it's a common mistake that new coaches make. I think I probably remember making that mistake in the beginning as well.
I think we all do. Everyone does, right?
Yeah, just through nerves, thinking I'm just going to ask you a few more questions, and then maybe getting excited about the fact that we agree on similar things. And then, like you said, now it's like, well, how do I now transition into an actual authority-based business-related sales call? And I like the fact that the way that we teach it, you go straight into the fact that this is an opportunity for us to see if we're a fit. I'm going to help you out on the call. Like, I'm going to share some insights. Like, I'm going to give you a heap of value. But ultimately, the reason why we're here is to see if you're a match for the thing that I've got. And that straight away sets the right tone. I think it also respects people's time as well. One of the things I hate is when someone would DM me or something and they'd say, hey, just want to know if you want to catch up. And I'd be like, about what? Oh, I just want to catch up. And I'm like, can you tell me why you want to catch up? And they're like, oh, well, we'll talk about it when we get there. And I'm like, no, what do you mean? Like, if you want to be my friend, that's fine. And we can go down that route and see if there's a friendship there. But if you want to pretend that you want that, and then you really want to sell me something, I actually find that very annoying. And I think it disrespects my time. And so you respect people's time by just being, like you said, you've got rapport and I do care about you. And I have an outcome here and I want to check if you want to explore that outcome. Yes or no, that's fine. I'm not phased either way. But it really does respect them. But like you said, it really sets you up as an authority, and you own the frame, which is an integral part of the conversation. You must be in control. If they're in control, it's going to fall apart. You need to be the one who's in control of the conversation.
Someone's always leading, right? It's either going to be you leading and selling, or they're going to be leading and selling. And then one of the also unfortunate things that happens at the start of a call, if you don't control the frame and have an intro frame like we've just mentioned, is that they will derail the call, and you'll get something like, okay, Matt, awesome. Look, I don't have a lot of time. What's the price? Just get to the price. Look, I've been in sales before. Hit me with the price. Yeah. And I'm always like, hell no. Anyone that approaches a call like that, I politely respond, but I'm just like, look, that's absolutely fine. We're going to get to that. I'm going to run you through all the ins and outs of the program. But look, this program isn't for everybody. I really need to make sure you're a good fit for the program first. So I'm going to ask you a few more questions just to make sure that's the case. Does that sound good? Yeah. And then hopefully by taking the power back in that frame, they say, yeah, let's go. And if they don't, I just say, look, well, it doesn't seem like we're a good fit. How about you try this YouTube video or this free cool thing that I've got? Yeah. And then if you feel like running through the process with me another time, we can talk then.
And that response does two really important things. One, if they don't like that answer, they were never going to buy ever.
Totally.
And if they do like that answer and they still go away and have to think about it or whatever, they'll now come back because we've we've set the authority. And people want to work with people that they respect and that are going to actually lead them. If you think about what's coaching, it's leadership.
Leadership, totally.
Right. And one of the basic frames I always think, I'm like, if you won't let me lead you, well, I actually don't want you to join whatever I'm selling because it's going to be annoying as shit because the whole thing is me trying to lead you. So step number one is you're testing, will you let me lead you? And if you can't do it in the sales call, well, you definitely can't do it while you're paying me.
Yeah. I mean, I've made that mistake in my early days where I would let people just run the show. And I promise you wholeheartedly, I never closed one of those people. Why? Yep. They were never going to close anyway. They're just there to bully the conversation. And so you need to own the power dynamics of a sales call. It starts in the intro frame. Yeah. And if you're listening to this and you are in that needy mindset around selling and you sell someone that tries to derail the call, etc., magically, which is probably unlikely. But if you do, I promise you, they are going to be the worst client to coach ever. You do not want a culture and a program full of people like that. I'm sure everyone will agree.
That's another really important thing is you really want, in the beginning, when you're first selling, I can appreciate that you just want anyone to buy your coaching program. I can appreciate that. I used to joke and say that my avatar in my first year were people that had a pulse. You know, if you had a pulse, you were willing to pay me money. I'll work out how to coach you because I just wanted to see if I could do it. But eventually, you very much are going to change your thinking around that. And you think, okay, I'm going to have to speak to you a lot. I'm going to have to hang out with you. I know one of the ways that we think about it is if I wouldn't have lunch with you, I don't want you in my program. Like if you're annoying as shit and you're just all about significance and you're all about just telling me how good you are, but you won't ask me any questions, I find that very annoying. I would rather pay you to go away, to be completely honest. And when you think about it in contrast, when you get really clear, who's your ideal avatar? Like we have the best people. I say it to our community all the time. Like I genuinely love running webinars and running events for our community because it's so enjoyable. The people are such high quality. They ask such great questions. They're such a joy to be around. They're so grateful. And when you have that, all of a sudden your work life is amazing because you're just hanging out with great people all the time. It's a win-win. And that comes down to the standards that you have in the sales call.
And that's not luck for us. We've cultivated that environment specifically. Yeah. And I mean, we say no to people every day. Our whole sales team, we talk to people. We don't let a lot of people in the program because of that exact reason.
We kick people out of the program.
Totally.
We kick 2 or 3 people out.
Yeah, 100%. And we do that to keep the integrity of the culture strong as hell. And we want to enjoy our lives. We don't want to deal with annoyances and unnecessary drama. And so we just refuse to dabble in that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Standards are a big thing.
Yeah, big time. So I think if you understand pillar one of a good sales call, which is the intro frame, knowing that number one, you need to start collecting trust tokens, build a little bit of rapport, but just a dash. And then most importantly, set the tone of the call for really positioning yourself as that trusted advisor, the authority. That's going to go a long way in making sure the rest of the call is smooth. And then once you do that and they've agreed to yes, we'll go through some questions. We then can move on to the discovery/needs analysis phase. And I'm sure you'll agree this is a crucial part of the call. And look, many different salespeople have different strategies, but we sort of break it down with a few key functions. Firstly, in the discovery phase is like a bit of background questioning. And I think this is really important. It depends, the severity of importance or how important it actually is really depends on how qualified they were before the call. If you've had a setter qualify them first and they get on the call, then your background questioning can be a little bit briefer. But if they are jumping on the call for the first time, you need to do a background questioning segment to your needs analysis for a few reasons. Number one, if they are not a good fit and they are not qualified, you exit that call just as quickly as you got on the call. And so the first agenda of the background section of a needs analysis is just figuring out, is this person my ideal client? Are they potentially financially qualified? And just any other key background metrics you need to make a good decision and understand their worldview.
Yeah. Even as simple as do we qualify them that they actually want what I've got?
Totally.
Yeah. I remember even when we first started Relentless, when we were still refining our process, every now and then we'd have someone jump on a sales call and they were looking for coaching education or something, and I'd be like, okay, you don't even want what we've got, right? And then we'd improve the setup process and, we get highly qualified people rock up to our sales calls. So yeah, I think it's a very important part. I mean, discovering about them. I would add on to it that with the needs analysis, it's also, I think a mistake that people make is they turn it too much into a process. So it's, I'm going to ask you this question, I'm going to ask you this question, I'm going to ask you this question, I'm going to ask you this question. But the outcome of the needs analysis is that you actually get to know them. And going back to the frame of being a trusted advisor, that you can then make the recommendation if they should join your program now or not, or if they should join level 1 or level 2 or level 3. I think a big mistake that people make in sales is, say you've got 3 levels and you know, level 3 is the most profitable for you in your business. That doesn't mean you should just pitch everyone level 3. Like, some people are going to be a perfect match for level 1. And if you do a great needs analysis, then you should be able to close someone on level 1 and they should say, yeah, that's exactly what I want, because of the information that you have about them. You can make a accurate recommendation of the next step for them. And it's the other way as well. When, say, for example, they might be thinking, I want to start at your level 1 program, but because of the information you have on the needs analysis, you know that they're a shoo-in for level 3. They should 100% do level 3, but maybe, and we'll talk about this, maybe one of the objections they have is fear. Then you should hold space for that objection, because if they do a lower level program, you've kind of let them down in that moment. So I think it's so integral to know which level of your courses is a match for them, based on you actually knowing their needs, and then being able to be a trusted advisor and make a accurate recommendation to meet those needs through your program.
100%, totally agree. And so in the initial background phase, ticking the boxes, everyone's going to be different as well, by the way, in what you need to get out of the background phase. If it's a business coaching program or a life coaching program, health coaching program, clearly there's going to be differences in what you ask. But there are some commonalities as well. Like the financial qualification is going to be really important. Maybe you're going to ask them, do they work full-time, part-time? What are they currently doing for employment? That should give you a good idea around the financial qualification. But also you're able to preempt and pre-handle objections through the background questioning. And you might ask a question like, cool, so does your partner support you on this coaching journey? Do they know you're here on the call today? And if they're like, yeah, look, my partner's fully on board, they absolutely love it, they know I'm on the call, she actually wanted me to be on this call, then you're getting a bunch of green flags that, number one, they've got the support they need, and that's all good to go. But number two, you're probably most likely 99.9% going to avoid the objection later on of, I need to speak to my partner about it, right. You know, and that's a big one. So if you can preempt and handle some of these objections before they come up, then you're doing a lot of the work for later on in the anatomy when we'll talk about objection handling.
Yeah. And so we will cover that. We will cover objection handling because it's its own segment. It's what Andy's saying is if you can start thinking about objections right from the beginning, it really does save you a lot of time. Everyone knows the answer that they don't want to get at the end of the sales call. Like, can I think about this? And the most annoying way to hear that is when you don't know what they need to think about. And we can cover ways to respond to that if you get that answer. But the most annoying thing is you're on a sales call and they go, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, this sounds really fantastic. And you're thinking, wow, they're going to join. And then they go, you know what? Can you just let me have a think about it? I'm not 100% sure. And you go, why? Why didn't you think about it? That's actually a failure of your system. Because if you follow like what we're teaching, you should know the objections and you should bring up the objections. And if you know that there's one that you cannot solve in that moment, you know you have to have another call with them, or they need to go speak to their partner, for example, and get the approval, but they're in. You need to know the objections. And I think that's a mindset shift to a lot of new salespeople, new coaches, especially. I speak to a lot of people that they get really excited about calls that don't have objections. And I always say to them that it's not the right way to think about it. You actually want to expect objections, especially if you're a great closer. Everyone has objections. You know, it could be time, it could be money, it could be self-esteem, could be partner, could be literally the timing of different events that they've got on. If you can just start listening for what a potential objection is, you write that down, you think, I'm going to need to bring that up at some point, or they're going to bring it up. And this kind of goes back to owning the frame. You don't want to just hope that there's no objection. You want to be in control of the objections, and then you're the leader. And then you get to say, like, say, for example, if we go back to your metaphor and they say, oh, my partner doesn't know I'm on the call. You know, sometimes we hear that and they go, but I really want to do it. And they don't really fully understand this whole coaching thing I'm into. Then you just pocket that. You put that in and go, sweet, we're going to have to talk about that later. I don't want to go into it straight away because I want to build value first. But later on, you go, so let's talk about your partner. And then that way, I think it also means you're doing a fantastic job in service. It shows them that you're listening. Like, how many salespeople have you spoken to and they just don't listen to basic things you've said to them? Or they'll ask you a question as if they haven't heard what you said earlier. I'm always positively blown away when someone says, well, you mentioned earlier, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh shit, you're listening. You're really paying attention to me. That impresses me. So it's a simple way of thinking about objections where you get to be in control. And obviously, Andy will talk more about the actual step of objection handling, which is super important.
Yeah, totally. So if you're going into the background questions, again, the agenda, qualify them or disqualify them. Number one, obviously still building trust and rapport, positioning as that trusted advisor, and also looking for potential objections and handling as many as you can on that journey to the next phase, the discovery phase. And so that's really the crux of going through the background questioning. Like I said, if you've pre-qualified them enough, it can be a little bit lighter. If you haven't, it's probably going to be a little bit more expansive. But either way, it should be done to get a really good grip on the situation. And then you've earned the right to go to some pain probing. And the pain probing is, of course, where you're trying to figure out what are the core problems? What are the problems this client's trying to solve? Keeping in mind, and this is something that I think most coaches forget, is that they're on the call because they have a problem. They need to change something, right?
Otherwise it wouldn't be on the call.
So if they get on there and say they don't have a problem, you've got to call BS on that and keep digging in and diving. And so when you get to the pain probing section of a call, there are a lot of different fancy questions you can ask, but we'll just keep it as simple as possible for the podcast. First of all, you need to identify and isolate the problem. Then you want to figure out the impact that it's had on its life. So cool. What are your biggest challenges right now? They say something like mental health, confidence, whatever it might be. Oh, that must be really challenging. So how's that negatively impacted your life? And then they can further open up and peel the onion back, telling you more about how it's negatively impacted their life. And you want to be listening. And as you mentioned just before, taking notes. What are all the areas, all the pain points that they're experiencing and that it's affecting, so you can tailor the system to solving those problems? Then naturally you could ask a question like, so how does that make you feel? And then you want to get them to speak to the emotional challenge and strain that it's had on them. And I think it's important to ask like three levels of and layers of those questions, because what you're really trying to do is hear their worldview and like see their worldview, but hear it in their language so you can use that language and speak to it so they know you give a shit, number one, and they know you understand them.
Yeah. What you said is about the language is so simple, but so important and so profound. And whenever we're doing sales call reviews, I'm usually pointing that out and saying you need to use their language a little bit more. Like if they say if they use the word, it's super challenging for me, then you should write down challenging for me and be like, because that's the word they use. That's their worldview. That's how they experience it. Don't reframe it as, so it sounds like it's quite problematic. Just say it's really, really challenging. Tell me more about how it's challenging for you. Simple things like that. It not only is a great sales strategy, but it's also a very, like in coaching, we would call that to respect someone's map. So you use the words that they've used, not your version of their experience, but their exact version of their experience. And then not only that, but if they say, for example, well, I'd really like to be able to get more confidence in my parenting so I can have a deeper relationship with my daughter. Let's say that's what they say. You write that down. Because later on in the close, you want to bring that back up again. You don't want to paraphrase and say, I think you said something about, because it's disrespectful. They're going to be like, they're not listening. So you want to say back to them, now, one of the things we're going to do inside the program is, here's step number one. And I think it's going to be really key for you because you said you wanted to build confidence and you repeat exactly what they said back to them. And again, I don't think that's very complicated. I think that's quite simple and it's very profound. It's just like, it's one of those things that makes you such a class act in your sales call. That's like, I could say that's great customer service, really. You can say that's how you be a great waiter, that's how you be a great attendant somewhere. It's the same thing.
Oh, you're tailoring the experience
Right.
for them. And that's a beautiful thing. And so I think when you get to the pain probing and then of course the needs and payoff section of a script, I think it's important that we just highlight why this is so important. Everything in a sales script and the process is necessary for a few reasons. And the core reason why we have to dig into pain and then to pleasure is that we are primarily motivated by two forces, pain and pleasure. We're either moving away from pain and towards pleasure, hopefully. And some of us are motivated by one over the other. But if you're able to structure into your script a beautiful dose of both, then you're really creating some epic emotional momentum to help move that client away from the pain and really helping them identify that it's a real problem and moving them towards a transformation, a better vision, a future that they can actually be excited about. And I think when you're looking at the way we operate as humans, we often soften our situations. And that's why we get stuck in such crappy life situations consistently, because everyone in our world has told us what we want to hear, not what we need to hear. And our job as a trusted advisor, aka closer, is that we need to tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And we can only get that through digging deep into these emotional core reasons. And so when we start off with the pain probing, we need to understand that number one, the job here is to identify the problems and challenges. Number two, it's to help unveil, pull the curtains back on the denial that the client's probably been in. And let me tell you this, if they've had this situation for 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, they've been in denial, full stop. And so we need to make sure they're removing that lens and they can actually see it and feel it so they understand the gravity of it, of course. And then we're creating a motivation strategy for them that they can finally say enough is enough and start to move away from it. So I think if you understand that from a psychological standpoint of why we need to go into the pain and the problems, that helps a lot because you know that there's reasoning for it and there's an agenda and there's a mission. And then I think once you go through those initial, what's the challenge? How's that been affecting you? How does that make you feel? A lot of closers and a lot of coaches leave it at that. And I would challenge people on this. Now, I think depending on the prospect, people need a little bit more pain than others, and you can sort of navigate that in the moment. But what I will say is this: when you have the competency and the ability to expand the pain into the other areas, then you are absolutely going to be supercharging their away from motivation. And what I mean by that, I think a really good reference, like a mental reference for people, is like the wheel of life for coaches out there. When you see the wheel of life and you've got money, you've got family, you've got contribution, you've got career, finances, whatever, and they're coming to you with a problem in one of those categories. But what they don't generally see is that problem actually affects every other area. Now, if I came to you with a problem and I'm looking at the wheel of life as a mental reference and I solve one part of that, it might be my confidence. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty valuable. That's good. But if I can't see how my confidence is going to influence my marriage, relationship, the relationship I have with my kids, my ability to make money in my career, the level of contribution that I can give, my social status and connection with my friends, all of a sudden, if I can expand the problem and the pain probing so they realize that low confidence is affecting every facet, all of a sudden the value of your solution has exponentially grown. And you've just gone from a $500 solution to a $30,000 to $100,000 solution because they're like, holy moly, I'm going to transform my world just by solving this one thing.
Yeah, well, there's two things there. The first thing is that we don't make decisions based on logic. Everyone makes decisions based on emotion. And then we justify our decisions with logic, which would be like, oh, can I do the webinars at this time? Or, how many one-on-ones to that, right? Like that's the logic. But no one comes in, really, that's not the criteria that someone buys a program for. It's not like, oh my God, I'm really excited because I got 2 webinars instead of 1 webinar. They buy because you are creating a space for them to connect with the problem. And then the second thing is then that makes connecting with the solution even grander. Because if they've got more clarity on the problem, now the solutions tend, like you said, it's either It could be 5%, but if you make it, 100%, then it's 100% greater in the future. And when you can paint that picture of, okay, so these are the consequences, but this is where we're going, then we have an emotional reason to commit. And I think when a sale becomes overly logistical, especially if you've got a coach that maybe themselves is a little bit overly in their head, a little bit too on the black and white of things, and they're not willing to go into the emotion of things, no one's going to buy. People don't buy because you've got a great tick box. They buy because you made them feel something. One of my favorite things is there was this really awesome young woman who joined a coaching program. I used to do these 2-day free coaching trainings. And I'll always remember her. She came in and she actually was waiting for results to know if she had a brain tumor. Right. So we met her on the day and she just said to me, I want to become a coach. Like, you guys are awesome. I feel so great. I'm literally waiting for the results to know if this is a tumor or not, or if it's just, nothing and it's going to be okay. And if I get a good result, like I think I'll join. And thank God it was a good result. She joined and she became a very, very successful coach. But I remember interviewing her years later, and I said, why did you join? What was it about the event that made you join? And she said, it felt like it was right. It felt like it was exactly what I needed. And to make a point that it's not about the content, for example, in her training, or the point that I'm trying to make here. It's not about the logistics of your program. No one buys because you have 7 manuals over 6 manuals. I said, what content did I teach? Can you remember any of the content that I teach? She said, I can't remember anything. So just remember like one thing. Do you remember an exercise? She's like, I can't remember anything. I'm really sorry. I go, it doesn't matter, because what you remember is how I made you feel. And that's what every good sales calls will do. They might not remember everything you say, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And if you can help them connect with the pain, the pleasure, and then provide a pathway for them to achieve that, they're going to have a feeling that they leave with, and they're going to buy on that feeling.
100%. And that's what motivates them to move forward. I think the other thing that we need to highlight here is that if you don't go deep into the pain probing and you don't expand on that, you're not creating urgency. And so if people aren't buying straight away, the urgency wasn't manufactured on the call, and that's on you. You know what I mean? People might come in and go, I'm not ready I'm not ready to purchase, something like that. They may have been thinking that prior, but if you do this process right and you expand on the challenges and the problems, you see how it relates to all of these areas, how it affects their wife, their marriage, their kids, etc. You're creating urgency in that call, which makes them move forward, inevitably saving them time and sometimes saving their life, because they're finally saying, hell yes. And so I think that's a really important thing to understand about this phase of questioning. And so once you then expand on those pain questions, I love to throw in 2 more questions before we go into needs and payoff. And one would be around the cost of inaction. And then one would be around sort of like an urgency temp check. And so I'd say something like, so look, if you've just told me that you're struggling with A, B, C, and D, and it's affecting X, Y, Z, if you don't move forward and start making these changes, what is your life going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years? Honestly, I think us understanding that's a really important part of you transforming and making this change. And then they will start to think and feel into the gravity of inaction over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years. And if you've expanded that pain properly in that segment, and then you extrapolate that over 10 years, man, that's freaking motivating. Anyone should be running for the freaking hills by that stage. So I love that question, just to really summarize and help them understand what's the cost of staying stuck? What's the cost of not moving forward? And then when I answer that, I love a bit of an urgency temp check. And I'd say something like, so this sounds like it's something that's pretty urgent to you right now. Tell me why it's so urgent. And then they'll tell me exactly why. They'll sell me on why now is the time they have to move forward. Yeah, now is the time they've got to make a move. And if you've done that right, and number one, they've accepted and verbally explained to you the cost of inaction, and they have made a statement enforcing that law of consistency that now is the time to act, you are setting yourself up for success for that close in a big way.
I think a great insight on top of that, the psychology of it, is that you can't create demand in someone. You can only uncover it. You can add a little bit of urgency on by giving a time bonus driven time or something like that, right? But you also can't really create their existing urgency. You can only uncover it. And you have to uncover someone's reason for doing it, and you have to so that's their desire, and you have to uncover their urgency. And it's also a qualification point, because if you speak to someone and they're kind of all apathetic and they're like, "Hey, how are you? Yeah, I was just in the shower and just thought I'd rock up from the call and nothing better to do," and you ask them all these questions and they're like, "I don't know, if it didn't happen, I guess I'd be fine." That's a disqualification. They're never going to achieve their result, because anyone with that attitude can't achieve anything, right? So you want to encourage someone to get into that position where they're like, I want this, it's important, because not only are you getting the sale, but you're also getting a great quality student, a great quality participant, whatever it is inside your business. Because as I said earlier, it's not about the sale, it's about the outcome. And when I used to be, I'm sure you can relate to this, when I used to be a personal trainer, you would have some clients, they would do everything you told them to do. They would not only get their results, they would get twice as good. And then you have some people that were kind of apathetic, and they would be like, "Oh, it's just really hard to change. I eat Subway 3 times a day, and I find that really difficult to do the things that you've asked." And you every week you'd ask them if they've done it, and they haven't done it. It's the attitude, it's the mindset. Those people don't have enough urgency. They don't have enough demand. And so it's an integral part of not only the sale, but it's also what that person needs to actually achieve their goal, which is the whole thing you're selling.
Totally. And it's all about pain and pleasure. That demand and urgency comes from that. And so I think it's a really, really good way to run a successful script. So you've got into the pain, you've expanded it, you've laid in the cost of inaction, you've done an urgency temp check just to really make sure that they're verbally and emotionally, mentally all in. And then you've earned the right to go to the needs and payoff. And you're a kind person. You don't want to let this person just dwell in the negative and sort of sit there and cry for too long. Of course, you want to take them to the next stage and build the vision. You want to create something worthy of chasing, worthy of fighting for. And this is a really important part of the process, because this is also where they see that you believe in them. When you're able to help them speak to a vision and transformation, you then breathe life into that with your certainty and confidence in serving them. That's where the sale really starts to form. And I think a lot of people, again, don't put enough weight on that. They sit there and they listen, and they don't empathize, and they don't sort of breathe energy into it and really expand on it. And thus, the person doesn't understand that they can help. They don't believe this person cares enough to fight for them for that vision. And so, again, similar structure, you go into the needs and payoff. What's your goal over the next 12 months? Again, how's that going to impact your life? What does your life look like? Tell me, how does that make you feel? And you start unlayering their worldview again, their future dream and vision. And what I love about this part, because I'm a positive, optimistic guy, I love saying this to people and then seeing them just like they've gone into a bit of a, oh shit, this situation isn't good. But everything changes at this stage of a sales call. They start to speak to what their life, their dream life can be like and should be like, how it's going to make them feel, the impact on their wife and the kids are going to respect them, and all these sorts of things come out. And that's where the magic happens. And I love seeing someone just transform in that moment. And then you know that you can tailor a proper solution to them and for them, but only after that's done successfully.
Yeah. Onto your point, you have to let them know that you believe in them.
Totally.
It's integral. If you think about in your life, if you were lucky enough to grow up and have one or maybe one person believe in you, it could be a parent. Sometimes it's not a parent. Maybe you had a school teacher, maybe it was a friend, an uncle, someone, and they not only had their own version of success, but they saw the potential in you before you saw it. Like, that's so powerful. And I think that's part of the crisis of what's going wrong with young boys at the moment is there's no role model. They don't have anyone believing in them, spending way too much time on the internet, playing games, watching porn, whatever it is, instead of someone saying like, hey, you could have something great. You really can. And I remember, I came from a super, like a low level middle class family, and no one really had too much cash. My parents are beautiful people. They broke up when I was really young. But I remember not even being able to comprehend that I could make $100,000 in a year. You know, I mean, that was beyond me. I remember my dad telling me that I think he made like 60 grand a year as like a support worker. And because I had no money, I'm like, wow, that sounds like a lot. Like, you must be rich, Dad. And then I remember finding out that he was not at all. But the only reason that I've been able to smash through that goal and smash through so many other goals is because of mentors. They go, yeah, man, you're capable for this. Yeah, you can do it. Here's the things that you're going to need to do to get there. You know, it's not just magic. Wish it and it's going to happen. You've got to earn it. But to have someone actually reference you and not just fluff you up, do you know what I mean? Because it's different just to say to anyone, I believe in you, you can do it. But when you really take the time to understand someone, you qualify them, you really make an accurate assessment of where they're at, and you go, yeah, you can do this. You're going to have to put in the effort, but it's possible. I think that it's easy to probably underestimate that when you're doing that for someone in your business, there's a chance that you might be the only person in their life that actually believes that they can. Like, how many people do we speak to where it might be like, my wife doesn't believe that I can, my husband doesn't believe that I can. Everyone in my friend group says I'm crazy for becoming a coach because they know who I used to be when I had all these problems and stuff like that. And then you get to be their support person, their pillar of hope. It's huge.
Totally. And if you don't help them understand that at this part of the sales call, you'll lose the sales call. One of the biggest objections or barriers to closing a deal is the prospect's lack of belief in themselves and in you. And so when you do the needs analysis right and you've hit all these points and the emotional momentum that you've built in the call gets to this stage, if you make sure at this point that you have listened to them, you're speaking in their words, you've built the trust, and you've made sure they know that you believe in them, so much of the heavy lifting has been done in order to get that sale and transform this client's life. So it's a beautiful process. I think it's so fun when you understand the structure and flow, and then you can optimize each part and you can preempt the responses you're going to get and know how quickly you can help someone feel empowered enough to say yes to themselves, probably for the very first time. And off the back of that decision, their whole freaking world's going to change because of your coaching. I love it.
It actually is really enjoyable. I remember when I first became a coach, I was already PT, so I was doing sales as a PT, and it's very similar structure. I followed a very similar system that we're talking about, and that was awesome. I really loved it. But when I started doing life coaching, the emotional impact that it had increased significantly because we were talking about much deeper things than their health and well-being is obviously massive, but we're talking about deeper things like their relationships and marriage, their kids, stuff like that. And when I became competent in sales, I actually realized that I started to enjoy the sales process a little bit more than I was actually enjoying the coaching, because it's this pivotal moment where they're actually making this commitment to themselves. And for a lot of people, it's the first time they're doing it. So you get to be part of that. You get to help them and hold space for them to make that commitment. And yeah, it is a wonderful thing to be part of. It's not just close the deal. I held space for someone to make a commitment to say yes to themselves and this outcome they want in their life. And, it's going to change their life.
And I think, the mark of a good closer is that you continually get that feedback. Our team constantly getting messages a year later from our clients saying, thank you so much for that call. You changed my life in that moment. Yes. And we've had that feedback as well. And so that's the power of running a really good strategy and script and getting competent in this, because you're going to be directing them to be the best versions of themselves and make them feel something they've never felt before, which is so beautiful. And so if we've gone through that successfully and we've nailed that, the emotional momentum has been built, the next part is the close. But we teach a little in-between part called the bridge. And why we call it the bridge is because when people are doing their needs analysis and they're coming up to a close, it's scary. It's real scary. Why? Because you've got to pitch, you got to ask for money. And so you're freaking out. And before people get to the close, I've seen so many times, I've trained hundreds of salespeople, and I always see them getting brain fog and fizzling out as they get to the close because they're overthinking, oh my God, what do I do next? I'm freaking out. Right. So the bridge is designed to be bridge the gap from the discovery to transition you smoothly over to the close. And it's really simple. It's an easy line or word track to deliver. But basically you're just saying something like, Matt, thank you so much for telling me that. I really appreciate how vulnerable you've been with me. So what I'm hearing is that we need to solve A, B, C, and D. And the biggest outcomes that we need to achieve over the next 12 months are X, Y, and Z. Have I got that right? And so in that moment, they're saying, okay, he's listened to me. I've said it in their words, understand the worldview. And then I'll ask, look, I definitely think I can help you. Matt, do you mind if I share with you how I tend to help clients just like you achieve these results? And I ask for permission. It's super easy. It's polite as well, right? So rather than going straight in, all right, well, look, this is what we're going to do. You sound like a car salesman.
Quick.
And it sounds aggressive and there's resistance pops up. But if you're able to soundboard back to them exactly what you've heard, solving the problems, making sure you're clear on, again, how that vision's going to look like over the next 12 months. And then you politely ask for permission to share the solution. It immediately releases any tension, resistance, and then the client is calm, open, and ready to receive the pitch. And I just find if you don't nail that, even though it sounds minuscule, but it's so profound, if you don't do that right, then the pitch becomes a little bit awkward, a little bit salesy from the get-go. But more importantly, the client's defenses go up at that point. And so this just enables you to create a calm and open space for each other.
Yeah, very, very important. I think anyone who's doing sales will relate to that nervousness that's like, okay, because I think when you get good at this, the needs analysis is pretty much like a coaching session. It's a really, like, pain and pleasure is one of the first models really people learn when they become coaches. So it's basic stuff, especially if you're a coach. You should have a general relationship with asking questions because that's what coaching is. But then you have to actually do the pitch and the presentation. I think everyone gets a little bit nervous there. So you using that line that we've given you, the bridge, it's going to make sure that you get a little bit of space and you get a little bit of time. But I also love, like, the way you frame it is did I get all of that? You're also giving them an opportunity to say, there's one more thing. Right? And then I can go, well, actually, there was one more thing. And you go, great, tell me, what is it? And you add that onto your list. Yeah, amazing. Is there anything else? No, that's it. Fantastic. Well, and then you go, is it okay if I share this with you? So it really does complete that process.
I think it's beautiful. It's smooth. It's the bridge to help you, like before getting at the edge of a cliff, you're freaking out, you're going to jump. You need that smooth transition. I think that's what provides you perfectly. And then we get to the close. Now, the close is a big segment. It can be different for everybody. I don't think we should get into the nitty gritty of, like, running through a presentation, so to speak, but maybe we just talk about some of the biggest barriers that people face in the close. And you alluded to it before, which I love. And really, the thing you need to remember is that, again, people, of course, buy through emotion, but they justify with logic, right? But when we go through the pitch, we need to justify with logic the features, the benefits. We've got coaching, we've got an education portal, support group. It's awesome. But if you get too robotic in that and you aren't interweaving their situational experience and giving them context around solving their problems to those features, then you are missing out on so much gold, and they're not going to fully understand how it's going to benefit them specifically. So this goes to our point about taking notes, listening, and understanding who you're speaking to. You've got to get really good at explaining the features, but you've got to give them contextual insights into how that feature is perfect to solve their problems and become their solution.
Yeah, the framework to think of here is features and then benefits. And you can say, well, the feature is there's a Facebook group. The benefit of that is that you'll be able to connect with like-minded people. And that's pretty good. The way you can make that better is you can say, now earlier you were mentioning that you're at home, you're a stay-at-home dad, and you're really missing connection, and you used to love being in the workplace and stuff like that. One of the things that I want to talk about in the program is that you get access to a great community. We do it in a Facebook group. We also do some webinars and things. And so I think it's going to be a great way for you to connect with like-minded people, but it's really going to solve that problem of being able to, you're not going to be alone anymore. You're going to be able to connect with people that you love. You're going to be able to do role plays, blah, blah, blah. I not only did the benefit, but I made the benefit specific to their problem and outcome. And when you just do that every single time, it's kind of like it completes the loop.
It's so powerful. And so if you're not doing that, getting specific to them, to their challenges, you're leaving money on the table. You're not helping that person understand the gravity of this opportunity. So I think you can do that with absolutely everything, whether it is you're listening and they said, I need accountability. I'm not consistent. I need a network. I need to be around new people. Whatever the things are that they've said that they need to improve, your features should be able to solve those problems. And you do that by giving them contextual insights into every single one. And to be honest, I think if you just do that alone, I mean, I'm sure you can reel off your features, but if you just get that right, features and benefits, very specific to them as an understanding for how to close, you're going to win in a really big way.
Yeah, I would also add on to that, leave out the stuff that doesn't benefit them. I always give an example where I'm like, imagine, this is what I talk about to our members. Like, imagine I was on a sales call with you and I actually listed out every feature that you get when you join our program. You'd fall asleep because there's so many things that you get, right? Imagine if I was like, inside the Go High Level portal, it also does this feature and this feature and this feature and this feature and this feature. And when you do websites, you have this page and this page and this page. That'd be like fucking overwhelmed. It's like too much information. So you want to be, Andy, you spoke to being flexible earlier. You want to have a general structure of like, I know that these are the main features that my avatar wants. But if there's a feature that's not important to your appetite, like just don't bring it up. They don't care. And don't overcomplicate it. Keep it really simple. We find that, it's probably about like, would you say like 6 or 7, probably like main points that you want to make. Anything above that's probably going to be like too much information for them to handle. So you want to be flexible. You want to make sure that the features in the program, or, we teach like have pillars and things like that. It's got to relate to them. It's a simple thing, but I see the mistake a lot. People will do a great needs analysis. They've got the pain, they've got the pleasure. They know the payoff. And then they present this program, and it's like not what they've been talking about, if that makes sense. I think a big mistake that people make when they're presenting their program is to educate too much. So for example, we got an example where it's a guy and he's talking about increasing confidence, and that's going to impact his family and his business, and it's really important to him. And then all of a sudden you're like, so we're going to do this NLP stuff, and we're going to do breath work, and we're going to do all this stuff. And they're like, oh, what's NLP? What's breath work? Oh, okay, well, NLP is this and breath work's that. It takes people into like logic too much. They're now not feeling because they're trying to understand what you're talking about, versus if you keep it high chunk and you could say something simple like, we've got a really great process. You could say, have you heard of NLP? That doesn't matter if you haven't heard of it or not. Essentially what it is it's this process that's going to enable you to insert problem that you've got, and then you're going to achieve insert outcome that you've got. And I think it's going to be a clean and easy way for you to be able to achieve that goal. How does that sound? You didn't have to explain what it is and its history and things like that. You're just always using their problems and their outcomes to explain what's inside the program.
Yeah, well said. So true, so true. So I think once you've nailed the basics of that, you've just got to practice it. You've got to drill it. It gets less scary the more that you do, as we keep mentioning. Time in the trenches is what's going to solve a lot of those problems. These next 3 pillars, though, that we're just going to talk about are like offshoots of the close, and they're just to really sort of bring in and make sure that it becomes a no-brainer, and you can sort of intensify the urgency around things. And that's layering scarcity and urgency through bonuses, and then layering a guarantee to de-risk the whole offer. And so again, in the beginning, you may not have these, so don't stress. But if you do over time have limited time bonuses that you can attach to your offer to manufacture and create scarcity and urgency to help them move forward a little faster, so you're not having to do hours and weeks and months of follow-up later on. And then you add in a guarantee to your offer in order to de-risk it and make the prospect feel safe and make sure that they feel like there is no risk to saying hell yes right now. It's going to increase your chances of closing dramatically in a really big way. And so scarcity and urgency, adding in a bonus set. Look, I've got these 3 bonuses that I'd love to offer you. That's for this month only, A, B, C, and D. Give them context around that. And then the 2 guarantees that I think we both love the most, I'd say, is probably a money back guarantee if you can do that, if you're confident enough. But if not, you can do I'll coach you for free until you get outcome guarantee. And I like that for beginner coaches as well, because it's a safe guarantee for the coach because there's no money loss, but it's also really beneficial and safe for the client.
Yeah, it also makes you back up your offer, which is very important. if you're listening to this, you've probably bought a program before that you weren't happy with. That's pretty common. All we would say is just don't be that person in the industry. Instead, be the person that says, well, if you've got a great attitude and you're trying absolutely everything you can, and it takes you a little bit longer to get to that outcome, I'm just going to spend a little bit more time with you to get you that outcome. That means you have real, true raving fans. Generosity goes a long, long, long way. I think a big mistake is people are really like, how would you say it? It's like, what would be the opposite of generosity? Like they're like stingy with their programs, right? It's like, well, you can't have this extra thing. Just give them the extra thing. If that means they need a little bit extra time or an extra session or whatever it is, explain to them that they can have that. That then gives them the certainty that, okay, if this takes a little bit longer than I think it's going to take, you've still got my back. You're still going to get me there. And especially as a new coach, that should be your attitude anyway, because the most important thing you've got is to create raving fans and get great results. Eventually, if you've got even just 20 people that are singing your praises, it's going to be pretty hard for you to not get more clients. You know what I mean? They're going to tell other people, and you're going to have great testimonials and things like that. So that guarantee is definitely something that we recommend.
Yeah, I love that. Well said. So I think we're nailing the script so far. The client is enjoying it. The prospect is enjoying it, soon to be client. And we've done the pitch. We've gone through the process, and then you're going to deliver the price, right? Now, of course, inevitably after you deliver the price, you need to get an answer. And that's where objection handling comes into play. And so one of the things that we teach in our program is advanced objection handling. And so once you pitch the price, you're going to get a response. Sometimes you don't get objections if you've handled them and you've done a good job and maybe they've learned more about you, consumed a heap of your content. But more likely than not, you're going to get some objections like, I need to think about it, partner objection, time objection, self-belief or fear objection within themselves. It could be a logistical objection. These things are going to come up. And so I think firstly, we alluded to it before, is that you've got to be willing and sort of expect that an objection is going to come up and be ready to handle them, you know, and not be surprised or bewildered when they come up. If you are practicing your objection handling and you are anticipating it coming up, but excited to just work through the challenge with them, then you're going to have a way better result than if you act like a stunned mullet and then you just, okay, cool, think about it. I'll follow you up in a day or two. See ya. Because you don't want to be in the awkward position of having a conversation.
Yeah, the general rule here is if they have an objection, you need to keep them on the call. Because if they have an objection, when people say, I want to think about it, they don't actually mean they're going to go away and think about it. What they mean is I'm going to go away, not think about it, forget about it, become too busy. And then when I see you call me, I'm going to go, oh yeah, there was that thing that I was supposed to think about. I haven't thought about it. Now I'm going to ghost you. But if you can keep them on the call, and even if that means you book another call because you've run out of time or something like that, you can only really handle the objections with them. They're not good at handling them on their own. And the more you understand about human psychology, we can understand that most people don't know how to make decisions.
Totally.
They have no criteria for decision making. And when you learn to have, and that's why your entire sales process is actually helping them make a decision by teaching them the criteria that they need to be aware of, starting with like, what's the pain? What's the pleasure? Do you have the time for this? Do you have the funds for this? Are you committed to it? Do you really want the outcome? Are you prepared to do the work? All those basic questions. That's criteria. And so if they have an objection, the most important thing is you've got to keep talking to them. And your job is to see if they can overcome that objection. And I also like the frame that it's not you overcoming their objection. It's you holding space for them to overcome their own objection. Because if you, like say, for example, if you say to them, they've got a time objection and you say, oh, you'll be fine. You're super committed. You'll be fine. And they go, oh, okay, I'll be fine. But then they realize that they're not fine. Then they'll come back and blame you for it. But if you go through the process that we have and then they come up with the realization, you know what, I do really want this. If I move this thing around and I reckon I can find the time, right? They come back and they solve the problem. Now they've owned it. And they're going to stay consistent with that.
Totally. I think partner objection and time objection are the biggest ones to handle earlier on too.
Yeah.
Like, again, one of the background questions that we love to ask and that you should be asking is like, so look, to progress and transform your life, it's going to roughly take about 1 to 2 hours a week. Have you got about that to invest in your personal development? Yeah, do totally easily 1 to 2 hours a week. Like that time objection shouldn't come up at the end if you've covered that. But one of the common objections to come up, which is actually not a real objection, it's a smokescreen objection, we call it in sales, is I need to think about it. And the thing you need to understand about that objection is that is not the objection. The thing they're thinking about is the objection, and you don't know that until you dig in and figure it out with them. So again, when you get the I need to think about it, it's a smokescreen because behind that is the real objection. And the real objection probably is time, money, partner, or fear I'm not good enough, or I don't fucking trust you yet, right? And so straight away, you need to ask more questions. And we have a 3 no rule in regards to the way we teach objection handling. And we challenge you to stay in the game and handle a minimum of 3 objections before you exit the call. So as a mental benchmark, you know that you've stayed in the game long enough to at least uncover some truth behind what's actually happening. So you just simply ask, absolutely, of course, I completely respect that. But just so I can send you everything that you do need to know about it, what specifically are you thinking about? Now you say that because then they're going to say, oh, look, I don't know if it's going to fit in my budget. Boom, money objection, right? Oh, I don't think the wife's going to be happy about this investment. Boom, partner objection. Look, time's pretty tough right now. Boom, time objection. So you've worked through the layer 1 of objections and you've gotten to the truth, which is really important. And then after that, the games actually begin. That's where the fun begins because you've gotten to the reality of the situation. And then I think it would be worth sharing with everybody how to really set up a good objection handling to and throw, so to speak. And what I love about this is that if you go straight into handling objection, you say, cool, what do you need to think about? Oh, look, I don't have a budget. Okay, cool. So what is it specifically about your budget you don't know? And you're getting too much into logistics too aggressively. Again, trust tokens are deleted. You are removing trust, not adding to trust. So I always like to think, is everything I'm saying and doing adding more trust or taking away from trust? I think if you go too aggressively into the objection handling, it creates friction, takes away from it. And so something you can do, it's called a tie down. And a tie down is where you're repositioning the value and setting them up to, again, remind themselves of why this is so urgent and so important. And so they might say, what do you need to think about? Oh, my budget's a little bit out. I don't know if I can afford it. You can say, cool. So look, money aside, do you believe that A, B, C, D in the program is the thing that's going to get you to X, Y, Z result? And I'll say, yeah, I really do, Andy. I love the program. You say, amazing. Tell me why. Why do you think that? And then what do? They sell you on the program. They're like, oh, well, look, A, B, C, and D features incredible because it solves this problem and that problem. And I know that I'm going to be able to do this and this. And when I do that and that, this will change. And so you've gone from fear and clamped up looking at a problem to all of a sudden reigniting the value, repositioning yourself as the solution, and then you handle the actual objection. But if you go straight into objection handling and problem solving, they're so freaked out by that stage, they're not thinking about the value anymore. So you've got to tie down the value, reposition yourself as the authority in the solution, and then you handle it nice and smoothly.
Yeah. I like what you said about, are we building trust or are we taking trust away? I think that's a super important way to think about the entire conversation because like you're not going to get all this right all the time, right? You make a mistake. But if you make a mistake, don't continue to make a mistake. Like if you're aware, oh, well, I pushed too hard just then and I've lost trust, pull back, give it a little bit of space, repair it, whatever you need to do, because trust is absolutely everything. And you can challenge people, you can push them a little bit, you can hold them accountable, especially when it comes to, I think, the objection of I don't believe in myself. I think that if someone's got the funds, they've got the time, and you let them get away with a I don't believe in myself objection, I don't think you've served them. I think that they came there for you to hold them accountable. That's why they're there. You have to believe in them and hold them there and challenge them on that. So yeah, you got to be careful not to push too much because you're going to lose trust. But I think if you do this right and follow the steps, then you do a great job in building trust, but also help them overcome their own objections.
Very well said. I think the last thing I'll just mention on objection handling is this. If you are learning objection handling, you're going to suck at the start. so be it. We all do. No one escapes that fact, right? And you're going to get better at it the more that you do. But just as a bit of a technical tidbit for everybody, if they want to think about it, you book in the next call immediately. Don't you dare say, all good, have a think about it. I'll call you in 2 weeks.
Or say, I'll send you an email.
Bam, bam. No way, no way. Say, if it does come to that point where you've handled the objection, the smoke screen's gone, you've got to the crux of it, they need to think about their budget or speak to their partner and you haven't been able to manage that, you then can give them a little bit of grace. Matt, look, absolutely fine. How about this? I've got space tomorrow at 3 p.m. Why don't you go speak to your partner? We'll book in a call for tomorrow at 3 p.m. and then we can have a conversation together and make a final decision. How's that sound?
I think it's also important to understand that sometimes their logic around, for example, I need to speak to a partner is just a literal thing that they need to do. You know, it's not that they don't like it. It's not that they're not going to buy. And if you push too hard there, you can lose trust versus extending trust to them. Like, for example, you and I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on business education together. And we always talk about it before we make the decision. We always do.
Yeah.
We jump on the sales call together and they're like, sweet, just give us. Remember, there was a guy who tried to push us too hard.
Yeah.
And we didn't like it.
Yeah, totally.
Because we were like, well, but we always just go and talk about it. You know, and usually for us, it's like a 5-minute conversation.
Yeah.
Like, what are you in? I'm in. I'm in. Let's go back and give them the money and join.
Totally.
So you kind of got to respect people's decision-making strategy as well. And I think that's where you become a great salesperson, where you know that they actually just need to go speak to their partner and they will join.
You learn to calibrate the prospect.
Right, for sure. Right.
And you got to do it with a good attitude. Like that example of that guy, he was an absolute prick about it. Like he sort of he arced up at me and I'm like, man, I won't buy ever. Like just to spite your attitude right now.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people have that. So if you're going to handle objections, you've got to calibrate and know when to decompress the pressure and when to increase it. And sometimes they do have to speak to the partner. All good. The main point is this. Don't walk away without booking that call again because you won't get them back on or you're decreasing the likelihood of getting them back on. And if you book them in and then send them a gift, some extra info, some testimonials, the likelihood of convincing them that you are the solution increases big time and you're going to close the deal.
That's right. 100%.
So once you've done that, the final bit we call the bow. And the bow is really simple. You've taken the money, you've taken the deposit, or you've booked them in for another call and you simply wrap up the call. You make sure that you are helping the client understand if they've purchased, that they have made a great decision, that you're excited about it, and you're giving them certainty around the next steps. And why this is important, I think the highlight point for this is that a real thing is buyer's remorse. People get buyer's remorse. They'll buy and then they'll be like, oh shit, I don't know what I've done.
Even when it's a great purchase though.
Totally.
Well, that's important to understand. Like I remember when I bought the Harley that I've got. I love that Harley. It's an amazing purchase. But I had buyer's remorse the next day because I'd never been on such a loud motorbike before. And I'm riding around and it's like, it's loud. Like it's one of the loudest bikes I've seen. And I was like, man, maybe this is too much. Should I bought this? I'm not 100% sure. And then, a couple of days later, I'm like, I even thought about selling it once. I'm like, nah, I'm going to keep this forever. This is a great bike. So I think it's important that buyer's remorse is not just something that might happen. It probably will happen.
That's right. And the closer clearly didn't do the bow properly to help you along with that. He didn't bow you. So at the end of a call, I think the main points are, number one, make them feel awesome. Celebrate with them. Let them know it was a great decision that you're in their corner. Number two, create certainty around the next steps. Buyer's remorse is going to kick in. If they get off that call and then they're like, oh shit, do I get an email? When's my coaching call? I don't know what's happening. If they've got no certainty around the next steps, you are going to get people ringing up either really annoyed, doubt and distrust has already started to seep in, or buyer's remorse will kick in and you'll lose the sale. And so I think the final part of a call is just simply that. Be a good operator, be professional, create certainty, celebrate with your client because their life's about to change. And then afterwards, you apply a great follow-on or onboarding sequence. And that is a beautiful, smooth process for a killer $1 million closer to go through.
Something that we do, I believe we do this really well, is as soon as you join, we give you access to everything straight away. Like we're booking you in for a mentoring session. We've got an onboarding. A couple of people probably called you like within a couple of hours. You've already got your login emails. Like everything happens immediately. And I think that really counteracts buyer's remorse. And it also shows people it's like we're straight away doing exactly what we said we were going to do. And even more than that, you want to find opportunities to go above and beyond, where they go, oh, you're not only doing what you said you're doing, you're actually doing a little bit more than what you said you're doing. Because so many companies don't do that. Like I remember I went to this, I won't name the person, but I went to, it was kind of like a health retreat back when I had all my gut problems and stuff like that. And I bought, I don't know what it was sold from stage. I think it was like $3,000. It was a 2 or 3 day training or something like that. I bought it at the event and I didn't get anything for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I didn't even get a confirmation email. I remember I followed up with them. I'm like, did you miss me? And because I'm like confident, I'm a confident buyer. In the end, I didn't care. I'm just like, I just thought you have shit systems, but I'm looking forward to the training. But if I was a nervous buyer, if I was an anxious buyer, if I was like, oh, I really want to buy, I really believe it, but then I left the event thinking, oh, it was that the right decision? Like I 100% would have pulled out. We're like, we haven't told me anything. I haven't got it. I haven't received anything. I'm not even sure if I'm in your system. So that immediacy, and I literally mean like immediate. Like they buy, send them the email, send them the invoice, send them the enrollment, book them in, have someone call them, whatever your process is, just do it straight away, and it counteracts the buyer's remorse.
So true. Well said. And I think once you do that, your job then, of course, is to over deliver like a freaking pro. Delivery is everything moving forward, and you want to make sure that you do everything you can to change their life. But if you want to be $1 million closer, this is what we believe the perfect anatomy and mental structure to go through on a sales call to make sure you're ticking all the adequate boxes to give yourself the best chance of closing that deal. But more importantly, the best chance of creating an awesome experience for your prospects. So they leave the call no matter what saying, I love that call with Matt. I love that call with Andy. That was freaking awesome. Because they may not buy then, but they will remember that call and how you made them feel. And they will buy later when the time is right.
Yeah, that's really accurate. I think that's an important way of thinking about sales is that whether you buy or not, I'm going to be the same. Like I'm going to give everyone a great experience. One of the things that I really don't like is I don't like it when, you use that example for that guy who kind of got a little bit antsy when we just said we wanted to think about it. When I've gone on a sales call with someone and then I've decided, I'm not 100% sure if I want this. I might come back to you, and then I can tell that they're disappointed or that they don't like that, it makes me never come back to them.
Totally.
I think, well, screw you, because you're not interested in me. You just want the sale. You're not supportive of me coming back, right?
Mad immaturity, sign of big immaturity in the
totally. And so I'm never coming back. Yeah. I don't. And if I did want the product, I don't want you to join me. I want someone else to join me. Where if you do what we're saying, it's the exact opposite. They're gonna come back to you because they know that you don't have any like weird, took it personal, hard feelings or something like that. You're just like, great. Well, I'd say to someone if they don't join and I can't help them join, and they say, look, it's just this, and I might come back to it later. I'd say, okay, great. Are you cool if I follow up with you in like, you said 3 to 6 months? Are you cool if I reach out in 3 to 6 months? Yeah, I really appreciate that. Amazing. And then you actually follow up in 3 to 6 months. I remember a person that I followed up, I think it was a year. This person said to me, you know what? Call me in a year and I'll join. And because they had so much going on in their life and it was just all chaotic, and I think they just had a kid and it was a bit crazy. And I thought to myself, okay, cool. Well, I said to them, all right, I'll call you in a year. And I put it in my calendar, and then the day came and it showed up and it said, call this person. And I remember thinking, this is going to be a cool experiment, because I'm going to call them and I'm going to see if they actually want to take my call, if they remember me, if they had the same attitude. And I called them, and they had saved my phone, my number in their phone, and they answered it going, Matt, and they joined.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was the best. And so, you're not just closing people on the go. A great salesperson should have, like, say, for example, if your benchmark was like 5 sales in the week, you should do 5 sales in the week that were new, but you should also have 2 or 3 coming through every single week that you've been nurturing for a year or 6 months or 3 months.
Yeah, we see that a lot, right? We see that a lot. And it's a big focus for every closer. So I think that everybody listening has got some golden nuggets today on how to mentally and emotionally show up like a high ticket closer. And hopefully the structure is going to help everyone listening in order to really, really measure their success and sort of benchmark each part of that process and journey. And that's how we like to use it as well. You can't, being a solo closer is one thing, but if you want to build a team, you need something to measure and manage off 100%. And this is what structure like this provides. So if you're listening, dig into the structure. absolutely get in the trenches and start practicing, having fun with it. And I think if your heart's in it to serve and leave people more better off than when they entered that call, you can't help but get wins on the board. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I really hope that this is helpful and it's inspired you. And, listen to it again, get the structure down pat. And then also, we've got some great free stuff on our website as well. So relentlesseducation.com.au. There's some free stuff you can have a look at if you want to go a little bit deeper into how to do this as well. That's probably a great place to start.
Matty Levaz, it's been a pleasure as always.
Always.
Looking forward to the next one. Team, if you're listening to this and you know that someone you love or care about needs to hear this, share this with them. Share it with anyone that you know needs to learn more about business, sales, and marketing. We're in your corner and we're in theirs as well. We'll see you on the next episode of the Relentless Education Podcast.